sit down and enjoy my own damn self. You can identify yourself.
Are you in so much competition with me? You jealous, Willie? I can't.
So they try to put you in a dress?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was kind of like, you know, you're gonna bite this bullet and then you in, where you got the wrong.
For close to 40 years, Don D.C. Curry kept crowds roaring with laughter while privately wrestling with an industry that asked for his silence in exchange for stardom. Now, at 66, the comedy icon is done biting his tongue. He's stepping forward, ready to confront the whispers that shadowed his rise. The truth, long buried, is finally breaking through.
I had gotten so much for next Friday. When I did Friday after next, I bumped head with the producers. Because Cube, at that point, had gotten so big, Cube had basically stepped out of negotiations and stuff. So I bumped head with the producers.
They dangled millions in front of him, just slip on a dress. They said 3 separate times Hollywood pushed the same humiliating offer. And 3 times, Don D.C. Curry stood his ground and walked away. Each refusal came with a price. Roles lost, fame delayed, doors slammed. But comedy wasn't his first dream anyway, baseball was. He was meant to play first base for the Detroit Tigers, chasing glory with a bat, not a mic.
I played Victoria, Canada, Victoria Blues. I played San Luis, Mexico, and then I signed with Detroit Tigers.
From Canada to Mexico, DC hustled through the minor leagues, chasing that big league dream. But while his teammates danced under disco lights, he drifted elsewhere. Laughter pulled him in comedy clubs, not nightclubs, became his after-game ritual.
After games, everybody would roll their sleeves, roll their jacket sleeves up and go and dance. Well, I never did that. I couldn't dance, man. So I would go, as long as I can remember in my career, I would go to the comedy club, and we go out of town on the road after games. Wow. I go to comedy club, and I used to like open mic night.
Night after night, city to city, DC planted himself in the shadows of comedy clubs, soaking it all in. He witnessed crashes and triumphs, acts that flopped in sets that lit up the room. Without knowing it, he was training for a stage he never planned to stand on. Then fate stepped in and open mic night ran short on performers. They asked if anyone else wanted to try, and DC raised his hand.
So ain't nobody in there know me, so I couldn't embarrass myself. Ain't nobody know me.
Right.
And I went up.
Really?
That's 11,012 shows.
That was the spark, the moment everything shifted. He was given 4 minutes, but tore through every joke he knew in just 2. The crowd barely reacted, but DC felt something ignite inside. It wasn't laughter, he chased it with purpose. That night marked the start of a 38-year journey, over 11,000 shows strong.
I recorded every show I did at that time. And then I would just listen to it, man, just repeatedly. And I should have said this first. I should have said that.
DC tackled comedy with the same grit he brought to the ball field, meticulous, relentless, focused. He recorded every set, broke down every laugh, and treated punchlines like plays to be studied. That discipline became his armor when Hollywood came knocking with soul-testing offers. But before the big lights, he had to grind through the trenches. His first paycheck, 14 shows, opening for Paul Mooney for just $70.
And at the end of the week, at Sunday night, after we did the last show, they handed me a pink slip, said I owed them $123 for what I had drank.
2 weeks in, and DC walked away owing the club money, but he didn't care. He was addicted. The stage had become his field. The mic, his bat. This wasn't just about jokes, it was about heart, grit, and truth. Comedy didn't just test timing, it tested your soul. Baseball was over, this was something far more dangerous. Fame came calling, but it brought shadows with it. Bet's comic view made him a star, and film roles followed. But behind the cameras, behind the contracts was a pattern he couldn't ignore. Hollywood had a rule book, and black comedians faced a twisted clause. To rise higher, they had to wear more than just confidence. They had to wear dresses. It was never about comedy, it was about control. The offers grew larger. The pressure became unbearable. And every no from DC came with a cost. He was winning on stage, but losing behind the scenes.
It was kind of like, you know, you're gonna bite this bullet and then you in, where you got the wrong.
At the height of Grace Under Fire, DC was finally seeing real success, steady pay, syndication checks, industry respect. Then came the twist. The writers pitched a funny scene, DC in a dress. In that moment, the cost of staying true to himself became painfully clear.
He wanted me to be Brett's love interest.
Ooh-wee.
And I don't think America was ready for that.
Well, hold on, was America? Wasn't you ready for it? Would you?
I'm an American.
Hell no.
DC stood firm. He said no. The show moved forward, but he was left behind. The checks stopped, but the dress requests kept coming. Hollywood had a quiet ritual. Once a black comedian proved profitable, the test arrived. Not of talent, but of obedience. Success came with strings, and those strings were laced with humiliation.
Making you bow down. If you bow down, okay, all right. You want in? All right. Bow down.
Movie deals, TV specials, blockbuster offers each came gift-trapped with the same condition. Like clockwork, the dress demand arrived tied to fame, fortune, and a fast track to stardom. DC turned them all down every single time. He watched others say yes, watched careers skyrocket with one humiliating scene. The pattern was clear, but so was his refusal. He wouldn't trade his dignity for the spotlight.
So far away. What do you want me to be a woman for? When you got black women actresses who are funny in Hollywood, been out there trying to make it, and you want to give me a part like that?
DC recognized the sinister script behind the scenes. This wasn't just comedy. Hollywood was staging a spectacle, successful black men in dresses for laughs, while real black women were shut out entirely. It was mockery disguised as entertainment, and exclusion masked as opportunity. Then came the third offer, this time, with millions on the table. But DC saw it for what it was, a final attempt to buy his silence. And once again, he walked away.
I'm not willing to compromise to that extent for no measly amount of money. You know what I'm saying? Measly, a few $1 million.
Yeah.
Millions of
15 minutes in a dress for millions. That was the deal. But DC knew it wasn't just a gag, it was submission wrapped in slapstick. He turned it down once more, knowing the footage would outlive the paycheck. The roles went to others. The money followed, and DC's name quietly shifted from star to problem. 3 offers, 3 refusals, 3 crushing losses. The Friday films should have been his financial breakthrough hits that defined a generation. Next Friday crushed the box office. Friday after next was a surefire payday. But behind the laughter, DC was learning Hollywood's real game. Success wasn't about talent, T was about obedience. And one wrong step could erase everything. With Friday raking in millions, Ice Cube no longer showed up for producer meetings. DC was left to face execs who tried to shortchange him behind closed doors. They assumed he'd caved without Cube in the room, but they underestimated him. DC picked up the phone and called Cube directly, drawing a hard line. He made it clear, pay up or he walks. One bold call, one career-risking move that could have ended everything.
I did Friday after next, because I had gotten so much for the next Friday. When I did Friday after next, I bumped head with the producers. Because Cube, at that point, it gotten so big, Cube had basically stepped out of the negotiations.
15 minutes, that's all Cube needed to shut it down. Weeks of stalling ended with one call, pay DC or find someone else. The message rang loud, DC Curry wasn't to be played with. But others on set didn't have his pull or his courage to stand firm.
Ice Cube said to me, DC, what you want? And I told him. He said, call him back in 15 minutes. And I come back 15 minutes, they asked me when I could come in and sign the papers. I said, damn, I was too good.
DC Curry saw it happen firsthand. Kim Whitley, bullied by producers, didn't fight back. She lost her role to Samwar simply because she refused to make that crucial call to Ice Cube. In Hollywood, careers often hinge on courage or the absence of it. Even as the Friday set played like family on camera, the off-camera business was ruthless. Cube's loyalty helped DC survive, but that was a rare exception in a town where loyalty only flows upward. The same executives who tried to shortchange him would have dropped him in a heartbeat. Only Cube's direct intervention saved his seat at the table. And Friday taught him one brutal truth. In Hollywood, you're either at the table or on the menu. DC thought he'd found sanctuary in Bet's Comic View, a stage built to amplify black voices that mainstream networks had historically ignored. It was supposed to be the antidote to the Johnny Carson era shutout, an alternative to white gatekeeping. As host, DC fully embraced the mission, giving the spotlight to comics who had long been denied it. Then came the betrayal that shattered the foundation. Bet announced that Gary Owen, a white comedian, would take over as host. The irony was deafening. A show born from Black exclusion now being led by a white performer. DC wasn't just disappointed, he was stunned. This wasn't about ego, it was about principle. Comic View was more than just a show. It was a lifeline for Black comedians, many of whom had no other platform. The network's decision made a mockery of that legacy, and DC wasn't alone in his outrage. Richard Pryor, an icon who had fought his way onto Carson's stage, was present when the announcement was made. His reaction was explosive. He unleashed a storm of expletives, stood up from his table, and walked out of the ceremony. Pryor's fury wasn't personal, it was political. He understood that this decision signaled a deeper betrayal. Bet had created a platform to give Black performers their rightful place, only to give that opportunity to someone outside the community the moment mainstream attention rolled in. It wasn't just a bad call, it was a full-blown abandonment of the show's original purpose. Pryor saw it, DC saw it, and so did the rest of the comedy world. The Gary Owen controversy exposed a painful truth. Even spaces created for Black artists would be sacrificed for white marketability the second they became profitable. Bet executives believed a white host would bring in larger, more diverse audiences. But it was the same logic that had excluded Black performers from Carson's couch in the first place. DC watched his role evaporate not because he lacked talent or popularity, but because a white face was deemed more commercially viable. The network that once claimed to be different had become exactly what it was supposed to challenge. Even Black-owned media could be seduced by crossover success, abandoning its mission to appease white audiences. Comic View's transformation wasn't just a programming shift, it was a symbolic erasure. A show meant to lift up the excluded was now being used to reinforce the very barriers it had been created to break. The betrayal was complete, and for DC, it was unforgettable. But if Bet taught him about institutional betrayal, the comedy world itself showed him just how fragile friendships could be. DC learned this in the most unexpected way with a ceiling fan and a punchline. It happened in Memphis nearly 2 decades ago. Backstage before a comedy show, DC was hanging out with Steve Harvey and NBA legend Penny Hardaway. The green room had a notoriously low ceiling, and a fan spun just inches above Steve Harvey's head. DC, in classic comic fashion, made a joke about Steve's hairpiece being in danger of getting sliced. The room cracked up except Steve. The laughter stopped at his face. What DC thought was a harmless jab ended up costing him a 3-year friendship. Steve froze him out entirely. No calls, no chats. Cold silence, all over a joke. In comedy, you can poke fun at almost anything until you touch someone's vanity. And Steve's reaction showed DC just how sensitive even the biggest stars could be when it came to their image. It wasn't until years later that the frost thawed and the friendship resumed, but the damage had been done. That moment taught DC that behind every punchline was a potential landmine. Comedians live by jokes, but they can also die by them, at least socially. Whether on set or on stage, DC was learning that surviving in the entertainment world required more than just timing and talent. It took guts, restraint, and above all, integrity. And integrity was the one thing he refused to sacrifice. He never put on the dress. He never sold out for a laugh. He didn't compromise his values for crossover success. Even when the roles dried up, the checks vanished, and his name was quietly blacklisted, DC never caved. He watched others take the bait, watch them explode into fame after bending to Hollywood's demands. But he chose another path, harder and lonelier, but honest. His story isn't about the heights of celebrity. It's about the cost of staying true to yourself in an industry that constantly asks you to sell pieces of your soul. He didn't chase validation, he chased truth. He didn't play Hollywood's game, he exposed it. And even if he never wore the crown, he kept his dignity. That's the legacy of Don DC Curry.
Sees leverage or backbone.
And Whitley, who didn't do Friday After Next because bumped head with the producer. But I told her, call Q. You know Q.
Right.
We all talking, we was on set.
Right.
I said, call Q. And she wouldn't do it. So that's when they went and basically got some more.
Kim Whitley faced the same producer bullying, but chose not to fight back. She lost her role to Summer because she wouldn't make that crucial phone call to Ice Cube. In Hollywood, sometimes the difference between career survival and career death comes down to one moment of courage. The Friday.
From Canada to Mexico, DC Curry chased the dream. Not the dream of lights, cameras, or red carpets. The dream of stadium crowds. of fastballs and walk-offs. Baseball was his first love, but fate had other plans. After practice, while teammates hit the clubs, DC hit the notebook. Jokes, not jump shots. Punchlines, not pitches. Something inside him stirred. Not louder, but deeper. Laughter offered what baseball couldn't control. He swapped cleats for mics, dugouts for green rooms. Comedy wasn't luck, it was discipline. Muscle memory for the soul. He studied legends, dissected delivery like batting, technique. And soon, the kid from the dugout was standing under spotlights. Crowds grew, calls came. Clubs booked him coast to coast, but the checks didn't match the claps. After 2 weeks of gigs, DC owed the club money, not broke. Worse, disrespected, but he stayed in the game because comedy, like baseball, demands grind before glory. Comic View changed everything. Bet gave him national eyes. His voice was raw, real, fearless, and Hollywood noticed. Scripts landed on his desk. Networks called. Producers whispered promises. But behind every offer, a catch. It started subtle. One show, one scene, one costume. Just a dress, they said. Just a joke, they said. It wasn't. It was a test, he said. No, quietly, firmly. The phone stopped ringing, but the industry doesn't give up that easy. More roles came. Bigger money, higher stakes. And the same request. Put on the dress, laugh with us, sell it, sell you. 3 times they offered. 3 times he refused. Each no cost him more than money. It cost momentum, reputation, safety. He became difficult, hard to work with. Translation. He had boundaries. Then came Friday. The script was gold. The timing perfect. The culture was shifting.